love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. Yeah, man. I hope my team they won one. I hope my team they won one. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball, who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. Oh no, we don't have Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We have none other than Wilton Jackson II, as well as we have Brian Fulford on the call to give us an update on Thanksgiving. So first of all, let's not drop the day of the week. Happy Thanksgiving for those out there that celebrate it, for those that recognize the holiday in terms of celebrating family and friends, loved ones, and just wishing everybody a episode 747 of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast, the show that's covering the sporting HBCU dash for all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small. From the NAIA to the NCAA, we share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture, HBCU athletic aesthetics, to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic programs and the business of HBCU sports. I'm your host, Dr. Kenyatta, along with my co-host, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop. We're filming from our home studios. At least they are. I'm on the road, as you see, still in the hotel. Leave out tomorrow, heading to New Orleans to chase the Bayou Classic. Give you some updates from there on Sunday. But we're on our trip. Deuce is holding serve, doing really well. He did not let the cold bother him. Got up this morning, did the SWAC TV, and doing his thing. Now he's out there relaxing a little bit. Shout out for Alabama State, Dr. Jason Cavil, and the rest of his athletic administration staff. They got it going. They got some good stuff going over there in Montgomery in the stadium there. Certainly shout out to the crowd. Both Alabama State, Tuskegee came out. Weather was dipping mightily, and people still showed up. They just brought on the scalps. I got my golf visor, ASU, representing for the big win today. Give them credit in terms of what that looks like. I didn't wear it until I got back inside, y'all. I had
You had to make sure to clarify that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't play well in the cold. Thank God for sweets and things of that nature and being blessed and folks that recognize you, give you opportunity to be in there. Because you all folks like Wilton, they get it done on the sidelines. I'm like, man, yeah, y'all can have that. I had that. I did go down there. And shake a couple of hands, and I moved around quite quickly. It had to be a better way. With that being said, Brian, how you doing today?
Doing well, Doc. Doing well. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Happy Thanksgiving, Wilton, and to the HBCU family out there. Hopefully, everybody had a good time. Hopefully, you found a way to be around some family and somebody have a piece of pie or a piece of cake for me. I didn't get any, but it's all good.
Yes, certainly. When you talk about that, good framework. We will get into the score today. It got away from Tuskegee, if you want to look at it that way. It started out pretty hot, but we'll take a deeper dive in that in the second segment. But with that being said, Wilton, how are you doing today?
Doc, I am doing great. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Brian, and everybody else in the HBCU landscape. It's been a great day. Gotten a chance to kind of spend some time with family. Got some good food, man. I'll tell you, some good greens, some turkey, some ham. A little, not too much bread today. I couldn't get too much of that, but it was the little rolls I had. They were good, man. Like I ain't had no dessert yet because I knew I had to come on the show. I ain't want to be too slumped. I want to still be able to be prompt and present as a student in the class. So I
Good job, Wilton holding it
I
down.
wanted to make sure I
Wilton holding it down.
I wanted to make sure I wanted to hold it down. But no, all in all, everything's good. We got some good games coming up next week, and even this weekend with Division II playoffs.
I must admit, the sweet greens were not too bad.
Yeah.
I did my own little mix. I had the gumbo, didn't have any sausage, maybe a little chicken in there.
Yeah.
Didn't do the rice like you, Wilton. I stayed away from the starch. I think I did take maybe a spoonful of mac and cheese. You know, one day you can cheat a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
But I put the greens in there and I put some gumbo sauce in there. Made my own little mix. It ended up being pretty good. It was nice and warm, so that really helped keeping you warm as you. If you're like me, again, not comfortable being around those wind chills, kind of threw me off a little bit. But we got through it. Players got through it as well. But with that being said, shout out to Coach as getting it done. Found a way to make sure that I was taken care of with the visor. So I'm really excited about that. You're talking about Eddie Robinson Jr. got it done. They do get to 10 wins. So shout out to Coach and salute to him. We'll talk a little bit about that maybe in the third segment, or maybe we might sneak it in the second segment. Talk about, is it time to expand in regards to bowl opportunities? Beyond obviously chasing opportunity to get in the playoff, I think that's still a place that you want to look at. But beyond that, in terms of the way season kind of pulls out, is it time to also look at bowl opportunities? Let's get these gentlemen thoughts on that in the second segment after we discuss a little bit about the game. But with that being said, let me go to you, Wilton. What is on your mind in terms of news of the day?
Well, some of the news of the day, I'll just kind of go back. I'm sure we've recapped some of the, or people have seen the SWAC Football Weekly Awards from last week. Bethune-Cookman's Timmy McClain, Jackson State's Nate Rimbert, and Jared Lockhart, along with Alabama State's Andrew Abu Akel and Tayshawn Smoot were amongst the SWAC Football Weekly awardees this past week. Co-offensive player was McClain. He completed 22 of 33 passes for 274 yards and 4 touchdowns during Bethune-Cookman's win versus FAMU. He connected on a 41-yard touchdown pass to Josh Evans on a 4th and 9 with 29 seconds remaining to give the Wildcats the lead for good against FAMU. Co-offensive player was Nate Rimbert. He hauled in 6 receptions for 100 yards, including a game-changing 50-yard touchdown reception near the end of the first half that pushed the Tigers' lead to 24-7 following a turnover against Jackson State. Lawrence had 5 tackles and 2.5 sacks with a forced fumble in the Tigers' win versus Alabama A&M. Abu Akel accounted for 14 of ASU's 44 points during their win versus Arkansas Pine Bluff. He made all 3 of his field goal attempts, connecting from 23, 38, and 44 yards, and was a perfect 5 for 5 on extra points. The newcomer was Jared Lockhart. He was 13 of 16 passing for 169 yards and a touchdown during JSU's win versus Alcorn. He also rushed the ball 12 times in that victory. Tayshawn Smoot accounted for 295 total yards, passing for 271 and rushing for 24 against Arkansas Pine Bluff. He completed 20 of 28 passes for 71.4% and 4 touchdowns while rushing 4 times for 24 yards.
Good update. Shout out to the SWAC Players of the Week as things are running down. That gets into a little conversation that Brian and I had yesterday, even I guess it was, or maybe the day before. And maybe we'll get a chance to get in a little bit and tie that into the MEAC as they name their players and coaches of the year. But, Brian, what did you want to share from your week or day in the HBCU news?
Well, you were just mentioning where I was going to go. The MEAC just recently announced its 2025 All-MEAC football team, in which they announced the first team players. There were, let me see, did they do first team and second team, offense, defense? And just kind of reading the article here from MEACsports.com. Leading the first team selections, North Carolina Central had 12 honorees, followed by Delaware State with 6, and South Carolina State with 5. Morgan State and Howard each placed 2 on the first team. They also named the offensive lineman of the year, Roger Smith from South Carolina State. So this is the second consecutive Bulldog offensive lineman to earn the MEAC's highest honor in the trenches, a dominant and steady force on the offensive front. He anchored a unit that powered the Bulldogs to 5,050 yards of total offense, averaging 420.8 yards per game. That's pretty doggone impressive. The rookie of the year was Raymond Moore III of Morgan State. An exceptional freshman season, passing for 1,049 yards, completing 90 of 166. That's 54.2%, averaging 116.6 yards per game with 9 touchdowns, a true dual threat. He added 414 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns, averaging 46 yards per game, and ranking 9th in the MEAC in rushing. He appeared in 9 games and started 5. He earned Rookie of the Week honors 6 times. So pretty impressive. And he is one of the 25 finalists for the 2025 Jerry Rice Award, which is presented to the top freshman in Division I FCS football. So congratulations to Raymond Moore. Then the MEAC announced the Coach of the Year. Now this one, I don't know if you want to say this is controversial or not, but it definitely was highly talked about.
It was controversial in those social media streets.
Yes. Well, like I said, it was definitely talked about. In just his second season leading South Carolina State, Chennis Berry solidified himself as one of the most dynamic coaches in HBCU football since taking over the program. Chennis Berry was named the MEAC Coach of the Year. He's gone unbeaten in MEAC play, 10-0, guided the Bulldogs to a 9-3 overall record, securing their second consecutive MEAC championship. And of course, leading them to the Cricket Celebration Bowl for the second consecutive year. Now, why, you may say, is it quote unquote controversial? Well, another coach by the name of Deshaun Jackson just happened to take a Delaware State team that was preseason predicted 6th. That's like 6 out of 6, and guided Delaware State to their winningest season in, I don't know, 20-something years. 2012, thank you. Okay, so not quite that long. But he also had them one game, maybe one half, away from winning the MEAC championship. So, he lost to Chennis Berry's South Carolina State Bulldogs. So, I don't know, maybe people were balancing that. But it does bring up an interesting, I'm a big proponent of transparency. I am a big proponent of transparency. And so for the SIDs and the coaches, who are the ones who do the voting, right, it's real interesting for a first-year head coach from a team that was predicted 6th to go have an 8-win season and be half a game away from winning the conference and not get, I don't know, maybe it was a close vote. I don't know. Maybe it was. But that shocked me, not saying that Chennis Berry is not deserving of the Coach of the Year, but, man, the job that Deshaun Jackson did was pretty impressive.
I certainly think it was impressive, but I think it's just two sides of a coin.
Yep.
There's one group that looks at folks that chase perfection, and getting it done from that perspective, being elected at the front of the season to finish number 1 and getting it done, a lot of people lean towards that. And then you have another lot of people, or half the people, think if you were picked at the bottom and you come near the top, that you should be Coach of the Year. It just depends on what angle you like to use, which brings me to you, Wilton. Which side do you kind of slide with?
So, personally, I thought it was going to be Deshaun Jackson, mainly due to the fact that, to Brian's point, you resurrect a program that no one was talking about this time last year. And to think that they had this amount of wins, that first winning season since 2012, they almost had a MEAC title for the first time since 2007. I guarantee you no one thought that was going to happen this year in 2025. Mm-hmm. So when you look at what he had to do, first-year coach, no real coaching experience, coming into an HBCU that hadn't been great in a very long time, with facilities that weren't great as well, and you get quality players to buy into your system in year one, and literally, to Brian's point, a half away from potentially maybe winning a MEAC title, that says a lot. And for me, I think that while I thought Deshaun Jackson was going to get it, I also see the side of Chennis Berry potentially getting it as well, because he won it twice. He's won the championship back-to-back in a very tough year, meaning that he still had to go through Delaware State. He still had to go through North Carolina Central. And not only did he go through them, he won. Mm-hmm. And this was also, I think people forget that this was also a South Carolina State team that started off kind of shaky from that Charleston Southern game, a team that had not won a game in a while. And so after that, they really started clicking, putting it together. He figured out who his quarterback was going to be. And this was a South Carolina State team that we were expecting to see from the very beginning, but we didn't really see until after that point. So I think that you can't be mad that Chennis Berry got it, but I think that you could definitely make a case for Deshaun Jackson, that award being given to him based off what he had to do to get that program to where it is now and what he was able to do.
Yes, and didn't he have the quote in terms of, I guess, the interview he had talking about whether it's at the beginning of the year or recent, where he talked about replacing all the seniors that left? The number of transfers.
You talking about Deshaun or Chennis?
I'm talking about Chennis Berry.
Oh, yeah. No, he did. He talked about that recently.
Yep.
The seniors that left. A lot of those players on last year's team was from
Benedict. A lot of folks from him, and that's probably why they started off slow, to your point. But right. I think that's interesting when you look at that. So, again, to me, it's just a side of the coin. It's just, half glass, half empty, half full. Which side do you look on? Some people are full, some people are half empty, and I think it tells a lot of people's perspective of what side they kind of go with. They tend to lean in. And for me, it half a dozen other, I'd have been like, makes sense either way it went. I could see why you would pick that. I do think it's interesting that Brian comes in with the perspective that he almost wants to challenge to see how you voted, which is fascinating to me. And I think transparency is just, in terms of you letting votes out, if that's how you're going to do it, I don't have a problem like that. But it's almost as if you challenge to say that if you open it up in terms of how you voted, that'll change their votes going in, or that tells you some other kind of conspiracy, which is always interesting to me, other than just saying, hey, this is how people voted. And it doesn't change necessarily the reason why they voted.
All right.
So that's interesting. Before we take this first break, I did want to get in here with this news with Kyrie Irving launching the multi-year partnership with HBCUs. Kyrie Irving's latest project isn't about branding or logos. It's about rewriting who gets access to elite basketball resources. Now one of the NBA's most creative forces is extending that impact into the HBCU world. He plays his ball with the Dallas Mavericks, and there's an HBCU in Dallas, Paul Quinn College, the only HBCU in the city of Dallas, for that matter, has been named one of 14 basketball programs to receive a full uniform sponsorship from Irving's ANTA. The partnership marks a 3-year commitment, delivering top-tier sneaker warm-ups and team gear to both the men's and women's teams for an HBCU program built on resilience and community investments. This isn't a shipment of gear. It's a signal. Kyrie Irving is betting on them. I think this big when you talk about what that looks like. Some of the announcements is part of a continent-spanning grassroots initiative. Curbing ANTA sponsorship covers 14 youth school programs across New Jersey, Texas, California. Middle schoolers, travel teams, high school hoops, factories, and now an HBCU, all connected by the same creative force behind the ANTA K apparel line. Irving isn't a logo athlete sponsoring partnership. He's the architect since joining ANTA in 2023 and assuming the role of chief creative officer of this brand. Kyrie Irving continues to look at changing force. So I thought that was interesting from that perspective. Let's take our first break, come back on the other side. We'll talk a little bit about the game, Turkey Day Classic today. Then maybe we can get into some more thought process of these gentlemen and see which way they land, because I think you're going to have maybe some controversy over Player of the Year. As Brian may be asking for the SWAC to release their votes in terms of Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year. What y'all going to do? You're going to give it to the gentleman And the guys that have the best statistics, are you giving it to players that played essentially a full year? What does that look like? HBCU Sports put out their projections, and they do have the Offensive Player of the Year being Andrew Body, and the Southern defensive end, Jacoby Gibbons, Defensive Player of the Year, a team that might have lose all conference games with one win. Does have the most stats. Andrew Body didn't play the last 4 or 5 games. Does have the most stats. So it'll be interesting. We're going to have those that are stat geeks versus those that are not. And it's intriguing for me. Brian wants to go one way with the players, but then he ignores that for the coaches. He don't want to go with the coach that had the most wins and got it all done. He wants to go to the coach that did almost close and got that done. So it shifts. That's what fascinated me. With that, we'll take our first break, come back on the side, get into the game, and then we'll let Brian redeem himself.
Football fans, the Cricket Celebration Bowl is celebrating 10 years of crowning an HBCU national champion. A champion will rise at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on December 13th as the MEAC and SWAC champions clash in Atlanta. Join us for championship football, interactive fan experiences, and iconic marching bands. It's an HBCU family reunion that you don't want to miss. See who will be crowned the next HBCU national champion. For event and ticket information, visit thecelebrationbowl.com.
For over 30 years, HBCU Image has been more than just an apparel store. We've been a movement, a statement, a legacy. We celebrate the pride, the purpose, and the culture that make historically black colleges and universities legendary. Whether you're a student or a lifelong supporter, our gear lets you wear your HBCU story with confidence and style. Because when you wear HBCU Image, you're not just wearing clothes. You're wearing culture. You're wearing pride. You're wearing purpose. HBCU.
With over 25 years of serving our communities, Destiny Financial Services, a division of Global Life, is here to help you and your family through difficult times. From cancer care to accidental industries to cardiac care, we all know that there are times that you can't control what happens in your life, but you can be prepared to weather the storm when it comes. Call DFS at 877-300-8269 or visit the website at www.globelifeinsurance.com. That is 877-300-8269, or again, the website at www.globelifeinsurance.com.
ESPN Events presents Red Lobster Band of the Year, a title reserved for elite HBCU marching bands. A season-long competition that culminates in Atlanta on Friday, December 12th. Drum majors, percussion, drill, auxiliaries, musicality. All aspects will be examined by the toughest judges in the world of college bands. 4 will qualify for the big stage, where national champions will be crowned. Follow us on social media for rankings updates throughout the season. And join us in Atlanta on December 12th for event and ticket information.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
This is Dr. Cavil with Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Wilton Jackson II and Brian Fulford. As we continue to get through this, let's get in here and break down the game that we had on Thanksgiving. That is the Turkey Day Classic. That is a game between Alabama State, the host institution, and Tuskegee. This rivalry goes back, as we talked about on SWAC TV this morning, back to the 20s, 1924 to be specific. 101 years of the game being played in terms of Turkey Day Classic. Tuskegee did pull out for a while as they were playing some good football. At that time, they were interested in making a run in the Division II playoffs. And then they decided, in terms of financial reason, that it was time to go back into the game. During that hiatus, you had Mississippi Valley in the game, Prairie View in the game, as well as Pine Bluff. But today's score was 58-21, as the Hornets got it done. It was a little intriguing earlier. Tuskegee actually had the lead, 14-7, 21-14. And then all of a sudden, Alabama State got the rolling in the matchup, scored those 2 touchdowns and a field goal before the half, and didn't look back as they shut out Tuskegee in the second half in terms of what took place there. So fascinating matchup in a lot of ways. Give you a couple of data points before I ask you your thoughts in terms of this matchup. Alabama State put up 598 total yards, 463 passing, only 135 rushing, and gave up 150 yards rushing as Tuskegee, the Golden Tigers, got that done. And they passed for 208 yards for a total of 358. Let me go to you, Wilton. What were your thoughts on this matchup? Was this the way you expected to go? Did it surprise you early that the Golden Tigers were able to even, keep close? In fact, having a lead shortly before the half for the Hornets went on an explosion.
Doc, when I saw or was keeping up with this game in the first quarter, I said this was not how I expected this game to go. I definitely didn't think it was supposed to be this close in the first quarter, let alone Tuskegee having the lead after the end of the first quarter. But I'm sure Coach Robinson probably told his guys some necessary choice words after that first quarter to wake up, and they absolutely did that. They outscored Tuskegee 24-0 the second, 14-0 in the third, and of course 6 points in the fourth. And this is the final score of the game, obviously, is indicative of what I thought this would be. But again, Tuskegee didn't necessarily play a bad game, not offensively. It's more so the fact that they just couldn't stop. They couldn't stop Alabama State defensively because I was looking at the stats, Doc, and Tuskegee was 6-11 on third downs. They had over 350 plus yards in total yards. They ran for 150 yards on the ground. They only had 4 penalties. As a matter of fact, Alabama State had more penalties than them, but those turnovers. They had 3 turnovers in that game, 3 interceptions specifically. So when you think about that, you're not going to win a game if you have the most turnovers in most cases. It's just not going to work that way. And I think that you saw a Alabama State team that woke up and they found a way to shut down the Golden Tigers offense, the offense that they had, at least stopped them from scoring. They were able to still kind of move the ball, but they were able to stop them from scoring. And I think a strong positive that I like too was, again, it was Tuskegee, but Tayshawn Smoot, the way he ended this season, 4 touchdowns, I believe, in this game. Yeah, 4 touchdowns, 422 yards in the air, and 189 going to Jalen Jones, one of the biggest playmakers at wideout. So if you're Tayshawn Smoot, you're excited about the way this season ended per se with the win in your stat line. And this was really a solid season for Alabama State. It sucks that you have 10 wins, most wins since 2004, the last time they won the SWAC championship when Tavares Jackson was the quarterback. It's tough. You talk about one play that came down to you being in the SWAC championship versus Jackson State competing for a SWAC championship at this point. So, but nonetheless, kudos to Eddie Robinson Jr. for the season that they put together, obviously with Andrew Body out. And some other players, stepping up, making big plays, and this is what I expected Alabama State to do.
Great points all around. 23,256 watched this game. ASU Football Stadium. The high was jumping, as I like to call it, in terms of the stadium bar in there. They call it the Nest, but fascinating when you think about that. Brian, where are you in terms of what you thought about this matchup?
Well, first off, props to the 23,000 plus that came to see this game.
Holiday.
It just for those of us outside of the state who will kind of look at this and say, "Oh, poor Alabama State for not having an opportunity to continue playing after today." The benefit of playing this game in front of 23,000 speaks volume. and you don't lose money. So, congratulations on a 10-win season. Point number 2, Tyshawn Smoot. Now, if we don't see, I'm going to be controversial here because I love it. If we don't see Andrew Body again in an Alabama State Hornet uniform, man, how good is Alabama State with Tyshawn Smoot leading them next year as just a redshirt freshman? Jalen Jones is a freshman. Alabama State future is very bright. So I know, everyone in Hornet Nation is going to pony up and do what they need to do from that NIL perspective to keep Andrew Body. But if you were to go elsewhere, make sure y'all take care of Tyshawn Smoot. That's all I'm gonna say, because that young man, the future is bright for the young man from Springfield, Ohio. So make sure you take care of him as well.
Great points in terms of what you look at in this matchup. Let me go to the slide. Let's take it in. It's holiday, so we give thanks. What if we had a second bowl? Maybe HBCU Bowl, just for talks. Would you be interested in a postseason matchup that featured Alabama State and MEAC team? Let's put that up there in terms of what that would look like. Whether it was Alabama State 10-2 against a Delaware State team, or in this case, North Carolina Central Eagles, top 5 teams in the current poll rankings. It's Alabama State Hornets sent at 10-2, 7-1. North Carolina Central Eagles at 8-4, 3-2. Where are you on something like this, Brian?
Well, look, if we're going to do a bowl game, don't you have to have, and I know it's a MEAC SWAC thing that we have here, but don't you really have to maybe invite someone outside of the HBCU realm into a bowl game? I mean, we can do our own thing, sure. But I would love to see 2 teams that maybe missed out on playing, whether it be going to the playoffs or missed out on the Celebration Bowl, having an opportunity to play against another FCS school. I think that, because I think if you do it this way, Doc, you kind of take away from the MEAC SWAC challenge thing that's going on in the Celebration Bowl. Just my thought. I
think that's a fair question in terms of what that looks like. And you could look at those first 4 out in the playoffs. I think this year, if you look at the first 4 out, you had Austin Peay finishing at a 7-5 record. You had a Monmouth finish with a 9-3 record. Presbyterian finished with 10-2. Southern Utah finished with a 7-5. I think the challenge you would have to have with that is remember that the Cricket Celebration Bowl was a specific bowl that both of those conferences had to get approval for.
Mm-hmm.
So you're adding a layer in terms of these 2 conferences asking for a second approval, I guess, or if that approval still stands for another bowl game. In your framework, you would need approval from all the FCS program, all the conferences, to allow their team that is not making the playoffs, first 4 out, I guess would be the best way to look at it, that they would have a bowl opportunity. And so those are the only things technically I look at in terms of the challenge when you talk about that. But I think it's fascinating to see what that would look like. I think it just takes more people to get buy-in, obviously, with 2 conferences versus 13 other FCS conferences to get the buy-in.
Or
Wilton, where are you in terms of?
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Brian.
Well, I was just going to say the only other if we want to keep it HBCU and keep it in our own spaces, then it's time to move into, dare I say, the 16 playoff format, where the 1 and 2 seeds earn a bye, and now you have scenarios where you have 6v3 4v5 and do it that way, almost like the way the NFL playoffs used to be when it was just 6 teams that would go into the playoffs from a division perspective. You know, how the AFC and the NFC would have 6 teams. Well, the top 2 teams would get a bye, and then you have the wild card weekend. So you get the weekend where you have the first round games, then you have the semifinals, and then you have a championship. So we're talking 1, 2, 3 weeks of additional games that culminate into one final matchup. And I think our poll, your poll, Doc, shows that, wow, look at the top 6. Now, obviously, number 7 might be a little salty, but just look at the top 6. The top 6.
Somebody always going to be salty.
Oh, someone's always going to be salty.
That just gives us talking points of who should have been 6.
Yeah, the top 6 would have been everybody would have had 8 wins minimum. You know, I don't know what Grambling's going to do, but if they win, they'll be 8-4. If they lose, Delaware State would probably jump ahead.
The question will be when they jump Delaware State, where
exactly. You know, the top you'd have the top 6. You'd have the top 6 teams all with 8 wins or more, and I think we would have a real intriguing playoff to talk about, which would lead us into the Celebration Bowl.
You know, Brian always is going to push the envelope. You know, you ask those folks to be innovative. See, Brian was like, don't ask me to be innovative if you don't like my innovation thought process. Only thing I would add about that, I think you'd have the challenge. You're still going back to the NCAA to approve now another playoff at the FCS level, specifically at HBCUs, when they have that concurrent playoff going on. I think that might be a little more challenging than just getting another bowl game approved, but I'm fascinating to see what that looks like. Shout out to Lacey. I saw him out there giving much love. Also saw young lady out there representing Daytona Beach. I got to see her last week. I was in Florida for the Orlando with the Florida Classic. Shout out for those lab listeners. It's exciting when you get on the road, Wilton, and you get a chance to talk about fans that really celebrate what you're doing. They give you much love. So appreciate that, man. Lacey just broke down some stories and it's funny, folks looking at you, Dr. Cavil? Yeah. They can spot you anywhere. I guess the hair and the hat, it kind of works. It's not the easiest thing to miss or hide. So they'll be like, hey. Yes. So, Wilton, let's get back into it. What are your thoughts? Brian loaded the potato for you, so I don't know what direction you're going, but you're open to it. Would you be interested? Could I sell you on the Alabama State, North Carolina Central game if we keeping it MEAC SWAC? Can I, interest you in the top 7 matchup with that? Or do we give it to the runner-up, whoever loses in the SWAC championship game? Should they be the one benefit in terms of getting a true postseason game? So I'm going to load it up for you to give you more even meat on the bone to talk about which direction you going with, Wilton.
So I'll start from the angle of the MEAC SWAC. I'm gonna be real, knowing that the way the intrigue comes every year with the Celebration Bowl, 9 times out of 10, I would lean more toward the MEAC SWAC competition than another bowl. And personally, specifically this year, and I know things will be different year by year depending on different dynamics, right? Of course, we had a stellar, unexpected year from Delaware State in the MEAC, obviously with Deshaun Jackson and what he was able to do. That it may be something like that for another team in the future coming forward in the MEAC and or the SWAC. But I think that if you sold people on the idea of getting, say, whether it's Delaware State, and let's say it's Jackson State that loses in the SWAC championship, or it's Prairie in the that loses in the SWAC championship, you get them against Delaware State. I think people would be intrigued to watch that, to come out and attend that game. I also think that, I'm not going to lie to you, a Delaware State versus Alabama State, or if you get a Alabama State versus North Carolina Central, should they have been the case, I think you get 2 prominent programs in that particular case that I think you get fan bases that would travel. I think that people would, and I don't think it would interfere with what the Celebration Bowl has established, because at the end of the day, people are going to come to the Celebration Bowl regardless, whether it's your 2 teams that's in it or you have ties to the MEAC or the SWAC. This is a big celebration. People want to come to Atlanta. It's right before Christmas. Give people something to do after football season is done. You give another high-profile matchup, maybe leading into the Celebration Bowl, or maybe even, well, wouldn't necessarily want it after Celebration Bowl. You would probably have to push Celebration Bowl back by a week per se. I think it's good. I would come to it. I think other people across the SWAC or MEAC or just amongst the HBCU landscape would come as well. But as I was thinking about what Brian said in terms of if you invite somebody else out from, say, the FCS level, right? And I was just thinking about a common opponent, and you mentioned it, Dr. Cavil, when you said Monmouth. And, Delaware State and Monmouth went back and forth earlier this year. Delaware State lost that game, but it was a high-scoring affair. Well, if you like football and you like FCS football in general, it's like, well, you got a good game. You get a rematch there if that was the case in that particular setting. But how many people will really be at that game at the end of or midway to December, other than maybe Delaware State fans, other HBCUs? Will Monmouth, a team that's an FCS top 20, top 25 program, will they come out? I mean, of course, some fans will, but will it generate the revenue per se that we may be actually expecting? Then on top of that, Doc, you have to also think about, well, the idea of potentially traveling. Will the HBCU that's playing in that particular performance, will they actually get a real strong cut of that revenue versus, what they would get from the Celebration Bowl or another bowl between another HBCU, which is also a point that we often talk about. So I could see it both ways, but I would definitely favor more for the MEAC SWAC, or to Brian's point, and I don't know if he mentioned this angle of it, if we were going to have a playoff, maybe get all 4 divisions, CIAA, SIAC, SWAC, and MEAC, and maybe do something like that.
Interesting. Curtis Simons pushed that out there in the interview that I saw about that, his interest in that. Again, You all put stuff on the table that is very intriguing to me. But when you start looking at the policies in NCAA, it's even harder. Currently, NCAA doesn't allow postseason play that would be between cross divisions. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like and how much lobbying, if you could get the presidents and the chancellors to agree that this together. And then obviously you need the financial capital to make it go, which makes it even more significant. But I think it's just intriguing conversations. It's a way to make sure that the teams that had very good seasons still get some recognition, as you talk about, particularly when you look at Alabama State. They got the 10 wins, and they're going to be one of maybe 2 teams, 3 at the most, they get to 10 wins, which is incredible. Go ahead, Brian. Close it out.
What level of lobbying? Here's a thought here, and as we're talking about this, got me thinking. What level of lobbying would have to come in order to be able to convince the NCAA and these other FCS schools to sort of allow HBCUs to have essentially their own playoffs? Because we're not participating in the FCS playoffs. And essentially what we're pitching or throwing out is essentially saying we want to have our own playoffs, because we would have a television partner, presumably, that is willing to back this idea. And so I wonder to what degree would one or 2 things I think would happen. They would say, sure, go ahead and do it. And then when you see the success in year 1, all of a sudden it'd be like, whoa, well, you know what? Wait a minute. Maybe we should change something that, because again, HBCUs are bringing one of the largest fan bases into FCS football, right? So money talks. And so if you have that kind of power, which we do among our fan bases and interest, somebody's going to want to cut it eventually. And so while it may get off the ground in year 1 or 2, I could foresee a situation where all of a sudden now the FCS/NCAA changes remember I brought up earlier about why their playoffs start when they start, because if the FCS playoffs started after Thanksgiving break, or better yet, after conference championship weekend, we possibly would have a school like Alabama State in the playoffs, maybe even another school.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. I still think it's a challenge because you look at the top 25; they weren't in the top 25 polls. Mm-hmm. You talked about the first four out. Those. See,
I think we don't get into the Doc. I think it honestly. We don't get into polls because all those schools, the voters recognize the fact that our schools aren't participating in the playoffs. I don't.
My question is, how do you explain Jackson State being in the top 25?
Jackson State was in it last year.
How do you explain? I'll break down. Let me go back. How do you explain FAMU being in the top 25 when they're in there? Usually what I see for the top 25 is if you're a team that hasn't historically been in the top 25, you almost have to do it for a year and follow up and get in the poll. So like if Prairie View finishes out strong, there's a high likelihood that they're going to be top 25. And if they can do it again, they'll raise up the polls and then they'll get a shot at being in the playoffs if they don't go to the FC. That's what you kind of saw with FAMU. The first year, they weren't there. Obviously, there was some lobbying that went on, but there was 2 consecutive years that they were not just saying this is a team that was pretty good. It was obvious that FAMU was solid. It was hard to keep them out a top 25 without looking retarded. So I don't know so much that it is that we just have shunned that. I think there is the obvious thought that there's not a high support of what they see being played in the MEAC in the SWAC. And some people could argue it's legitimate in terms of non-conference play. So you have to be so superlative. So, for example, for the longest, Jackson State was not in there, and finally they went on the road with Prime. They went up there, then they dropped down. And then as they got going again the second year, they moved up top 25. Well, obviously this year they started higher in the top 25. Mm-hmm. They had a loss, so they dropped a little bit. Then they won, they dropped back off, and they lost. So you see that from what that looks like in terms of that matchup. So just wanted to give that updates that. And the other thing is careful. I try to explain to folks when they look at the NCAA or even like the SWAC office, we act like the power is in the SWAC office, or we'll say things like the legislature, whether state or the federal. Remember, these entities are made up of the people that are the institutions. So it's the institutions that are voting. So to me, the challenge you would have with the framework that you're talking about of getting these folks to, whether they think you're taking their power or whatever, is they always look at the rule of the precedent that is setting for other institutions. So if, for example, if you're looking at the HBCU playoffs, Division II and Division I, well, if you do it for HBCUs, you cannot do it now for the other program. So how do you stop a Division II program from playing the FCS playoffs, if that's a desire? Because you just open up that door for that opportunity. So that's what I try to get folks to understand. A carve out for a bowl game is way different than a playoff tournament, or a particular playoff tournament between two divisions. So succinctly, if you're not careful, then the FCS program that can get votes in the poll can all of a sudden say, now we're supposed to be in the CFP. We need that opportunity. So those are the things that they look at in terms of when you talk about those rules. So let's take our next break. Great conversation. Why I want to do that in terms of this segment. We'll do our last segment, come on the other side, talk about some of these games coming up, mostly the Bayou. Tease a little bit about the SWAC championship game, a game that is real, that will be played. So we'll get back and bring it into the realness of what takes place. We'll be right back after this last break.
You're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics. There's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
Planning an event? From weddings to corporate functions, CMJ Events LLC brings over 15 years of experience to make your vision a reality. Based in Metro Atlanta and serving statewide, even internationally, we provide versatile event planning and authentic catering cuisines tailored to your needs. Whether it's pre-game meals for student athletes, fundraisers, weddings, corporate functions, CMJ Events LLC is your one-stop solution for exceptional service and unforgettable food. Our diverse culinary heritage means we cater to all cultural taste, dietary needs, and food restrictions, making every meal uniquely yours. Let's make your next event unforgettable. Visit us on all social media at CMJ Events LLC or email us at cmjeventsllc@gmail.com. Also give us a call at 404-664-3882 so that we can start planning now.
College football fans, a champion will rise in Atlanta on December 13th. MEAC champion, SWAC champion, the 10th Cricket Celebration Bowl, crowning an HBCU national champion. For event and ticket information, visit thecelebrationbowl.com.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties. Through its programs, Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and parenting education coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
For over 30 years, HBCU Image has been more than just an apparel store. We've been a movement, a statement, a legacy. We celebrate the pride, the purpose, and the culture that make historically black colleges and universities legendary. HBCU Image, a Kenny T's company.
ESPN Events presents Red Lobster Band of the Year. Returning to Atlanta on December 12th, 4 bands will qualify for the big stage, where 2 national champions will be crowned. Follow us for rankings updates throughout the season, and join us on December 12th for event and ticket information.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
As we get into our last segment, great segment last time. Y'all had a lot of discussion, man. Good thought, food for thought. Y'all got people out there thinking. But let's get back into some of the actual games of action. This weekend, obviously, let's not push past that we have a playoff game at the Division II level, since we're talking about both levels. This one happens to be a de facto HBCU championship, even though Coach Gray said that, hey, he's already won that. He's beat these teams twice. He don't know how many times y'all want us to beat them to show you that we earned that trophy. I was like, y'all were good. Y'all didn't tell him, just go win it on the field, coach. Just go beat their head one more time. But I like, and great interview for those that hadn't seen it. You can go and watch O&G Strike Zone. Yesterday, they had the legendary quarterback coach Gray that's coaching the Albany State Golden Rams, as Mike always likes to remind us from them parts, as they are in second round of the playoffs, and they are facing the Benedict Tigers. 1 versus 2 is the way I have it in the poll rankings coming out this week, with the Golden Rams being number 1, as well as the Benedict Tigers being number 2, as they moved up those rankings. With that being said, as you see flashing, we're going to talk about the matchup with the Bayou Classic. I'll be there in purpose, so I get to see that. I hadn't been to the Bayou Classic in a while, so I'm excited the fact that I get to take Deuce down there and he gets his chance to see what it looks like in terms of the Bayou Classic. Number 6, Grambling State Tigers, 7-4 and 4-3. As we alluded to in terms of those teams being on the outside, Grambling State has a chance to get to 8 wins. Or the other side, Southern Jaguars get to keep them at 7 wins and push them to 7-5 and get their first win of conference play to improve to 2-10 on the season. I'm going to go with you first, Wilton. What are your thoughts in terms of this matchup Saturday?
But you're talking about Albany State and Benedict, or Southern versus Grambling?
Southern, the Bayou Classic. Grambling State, Southern.
You know, Doc, this is also one of those games where you can throw out records. It's a rivalry game. Southern, we know, hasn't had the best year, 1-10 coming into this game. Grambling State has a chance, like you said, to get 8 wins. Southern has won the last 3. including last year. But I think this is going to be a year where Grambling comes in and gets this win. Southern is just not the team that we expected them to be this year. But, I mean, hey, they got a pretty interesting future coming up with, projected new coach and Marshall Falk coming in to lead the program next year or into the next season, the next new chapter for the Jaguars on the gridiron. So, but for this game on Saturday, I just think it's going to be too much Grambling in this game. And I think that, Grambling is going to get us a fast start. And if they do that, I think this is a Southern team that hasn't been necessarily built to, specifically this season, to kind of come back per se in this game. So I think Grambling, if they get a fast start, that bodes well for them. If you get Trey Bradford going pretty good on the ground, I think it bodes well for Grambling as well. And as long as Grambling protects the ball, I think they're going to be fine. If Southern does have a chance to win, they'll definitely have to lean on the running game and definitely be strong in the red zone and on third downs. Because if you do that, obviously you keep Grambling's offense on the sideline. And you just give your best chances to win. And I will say this, if Southern finds a way to win this will be a good way to end a season that was truly one that was supposed to be really high for them and really fell to an all-time low. And, maybe start the next chapter of what Southern football looks like under a new coach next season. It's always good to go out on a win, but I just don't see Southern getting this win. I see Grambling potentially winning this game, maybe 27-17.
Great analysis. Won't bury the lead. I was trying to get into football talk, but since you decided to go there, which is out there, Marshall Falk, if he is the head coach that everybody is saying will be announced on Monday, what are your thoughts of the hire?
I'm not mad at it. The one thing I like about it per se is the fact that Southern will have someone who, not that they haven't had anybody that understands the recruiting landscape or the state of Louisiana, but you have someone who's from New Orleans, has Louisiana roots, someone who has NFL experience, one of the greatest running backs to ever play the game. You bring him to a state in Louisiana that's a hotbed for talent, not even just the players that go on to play at maybe potentially other schools like the LSUs. But if you know anything about Louisiana high school sports, there's just so much talent that's spread all over across the state. So when you have a coach like Marshall Falk, do know that he's going to be able to tap into those resources and keep other players that may have been spread out to other places, specifically across the Southeast or really all the way around the country. Because you just look on Sundays in the NFL, how many players are from the state of Louisiana that are playing in the NFL? So if you think about that, you get a coach like Marshall Falk. He brings in these players. You could potentially, might I say, maybe you have a situation where you have a Marshall Falk. He has a year just like maybe Deshaun Jackson had at Delaware State this year. It's obviously plausible. Does it happen? We don't know. But at the same time, I definitely think it's plausible. I definitely think that it's a strong move for Southern. I think that he'll have, as long as I'll say it's a really, really strong move, as long as he has a really, really good staff. And I think that that's really what helped Deshaun Jackson have a good first year at Delaware State. And so I'm hoping that, obviously, Marshall Falk being at Colorado with Coach Prime, he's kind of gotten some guidance, some pointers from him. We know Deshaun Jackson did. He's been on the record to say that. So I would think that he would kind of use somewhat of that as a blueprint to kind of establish what he wants to do with this Southern program, a blue blood HBCU and SWAC program that is destined for success. And the fans want to win now. This is not a team where, you get 3, 4, 5 years. No, you're at Southern University in Baton Rouge. They want to win immediately.
I think that's a challenge. I don't think everybody will be on the same page as Southern. I'm being very frank with you. All the things that you talked about, Southern has done.
Yep.
They brought in the NFL coach before, assistant.
Yep.
Didn't work. They brought in a coach that had ties to Louisiana, actually had ties to the last edition with Richardson. They got it well. It didn't work.
Yep.
We've seen a coach that brought in a great staff at Tennessee State, even though I believe that he'll get it right. It didn't work the first year.
Yeah.
And I don't think this is a program that's going to be excited if it doesn't work the first year. All the programs that we talked about, coaches winning first year for the most part, and getting it done, have been head coaches before. You got the one example with Deshaun Jackson, and to his credit, he was able to get it done. But far in between, it doesn't work the first year. It takes some time. So I'm fascinating, and I think the blue blood programs, if we want to call it that, they always get the benefit of the doubt. They always get the benefit of the doubt of the general media out there. Because I think it's more of people putting in place what they want to see a program be back to, because it's all in their head and imagination. But I'm going to be fascinated to sit up here and watch and be intriguing to see if the maturation is what everybody thinks will happen.
And you bring up a valid point, because again, you can also look on the other side of the spectrum and say, well, there was Michael Vick. He was at Norfolk State, and we know how that turned out this year. They didn't win a conference game.
No, you're exactly right. Now, I will give Norfolk State credit for the same thing. They rolling in the dope. He's brought in a lot of money, a lot of interest. And maybe that's where Southern is. And I agree. Somebody put out there the fact until Roman Banks and the board are on the same page, along with their fans, I think Southern will continue to struggle. I think Southern's problem is the fact that Southern won't get out its own way. And I'm talking about all the great components of Southern.
Oh,
everybody, in some ways, even though Texas Southern would be looked at the blue blood, it's the thing that you kind of see at Texas Southern. They've been in that malaise, and you can't get everybody to get on the same page. Before we get in the matchup, I'm gonna go to you, Brian. And since we're on this, what are your thoughts if Marshall Faulk is the higher head coach for Southern? How do you see this playing out? Do you see it as a good move, and why?
I need Southern to go ahead and embrace this immediately. Don't wait until Monday. This is hot. This is the hot news. I mean, you've won 6 of the last 7. Wilton said the last 3.
They will not do that, which is the same point I'm trying to make. They cannot get on the same page. This is leaked. This is leaked.
It is.
This is leaked because the folks cannot get out their way.
Right. So that's why I'm saying.
For example, what I'm trying to say is they're so excited, and some folks are mad. They're leaking this stuff on purpose, and the leadership does not want to get in the way of the Bayou Classic, and it still gets out.
I think when you have a 1-10, 0-7 season, right? I know the Bayou Classic is the Bayou Classic, but this is a chance, and I get that their dysfunction is going to be on full display here and why this doesn't happen. But this is a chance to merge and bring this man around, bring him there on the field, in the press box, in the wherever, and start to embrace what's coming, the next step, because the national media has already picked it up. ESPN, the NFL Network, they've already picked up the story. They're running with it. Hall of Famer Marshall Faulk, next coach at Southern. So you can wait till Monday, and if you lose on Saturday, now you're saying 0-8 for the first time since 1940, Southern University names a new coach. Or you turn the dime on this regardless of what happens in the game, and now you have Marshall Faulk as the new and next coach. And just by some chance, if Grambling does Grambling type things as they've done 6 of the last 7 games and loses this game, well, what do you got? You got a Bayou Classic win. You got Marshall Faulk walking in the door. I mean, it's celebration time in the Bayou.
I agree, and I would have a whole different thought. I would be more like Wilton if you saw that. But you are making the very point that I'm making. Southern cannot get out its own way. They did not want this out there yet, and it still got out. How is everybody on the same page? If to your point, and everybody understood that this is the next stage, you wanted everybody, you're right. They could have put it out there on purpose. They don't want it out there. And it still is out there. And it's so much out there and so much credibility, ESPN picked it up.
Yep.
And the people don't want it out there. So that's what I'm saying. That's the challenge that Southern refuses to get out its own way in terms of all the pieces of the puzzle they had. And the worst part about it is it's inarguable that this is one of the prestigious programs historically in terms of black college football, but historic programs do not win you championship. modern day people that understand history can tie it to the front. Honoring your history, blazing new trails, for example, of how you make that tie. It doesn't work. So give me a bit of what you think about the game, and we'll flip the page.
Grambling State should win this by 14. They really should. I know even in years when over the last 7 meetings, even the 1 year Grambling State won it, they won it by a field goal, right? 29-26. So Grambling State should win this by 2 touchdowns, but who knows? Maybe all of a sudden, the legends and the Richardson come down from the press box.
What is the over and under that the NBC will talk about? Who the candidate is doing the broadcast?
They're going to talk about the new hire all day.
Oh, for sure.
I'm going to
Any
say
chance they get.
I'm going to say 4.5 times. 4.5 times. They'll probably spend at least 2 mentions of it before the end of the first quarter. And then if it's a blowout, oh my God, there's going to be at least 2 to 3 mentions after the third quarter.
At least 2 times before halftime.
I agree with you. At least 2 times before halftime, it's going to be mentioned.
And Wilton's a media person, so
they may start the opening segment.
Brian he knows the Las Vegas, so he's saying.
Hey, when they do that opening segment right before kickoff, with what's my man who does the track, because he's always there to do the, he always does the track. I can't think of his name. He does the sideline.
I see his face. I can't think of the name, but I know what you're talking about. I'm almost willing to bet a dollar, as much as I got, the dollar times X 100, whatever. I guarantee he mentions it in that stand-up segment right there before kickoff. Somehow, some way, it will get mentioned. I mark it down, and y'all tweet and tag me when he does it too.
Oh, I love it. Y'all love it. Y'all hilarious. Yeah, this is good stuff. Well, we'll see the next chapter pretty soon.
Louis Johnson. Louis Johnson is his name. Thank you, D. Louis Johnson. Louis Johnson. I guarantee.
I cannot remember his name.
Yes, Louis Johnson. He will mention it right before kickoff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is fascinating. Last one, promise. Benedict and Albany State. I know you wanted to touch on it, so I'm gonna give you a chance, Wilton, and then Brian, I'll let you close it out on the playoff game, Division II level, between Albany State Golden Rams and the Benedict Tigers. Go ahead, Wilton.
Well, I had kind of touched on it a little bit, but I definitely think this is Albany State's game. I think, and I will say this: it is hard to beat a team 3 times, and to think that you're Albany State, you beat these guys in the regular season. I mean, not only did you beat them, you crushed them in the regular season. Of course, it's a tough, much closer game in the SIAC championship game, and now you playing for essentially all the marbles of going to the next round in the Division II playoffs. But I just think that we're gonna get a close game, but it's still gonna be too much of Albany State and Isaiah Knowles. I mean, this guy is truly special. He's been having a phenomenal season all year, and I just think that if Albany State, they find a way to allow Knowles to be consistent the way that he's been all season. I mean, he's the biggest mismatch for Benedict in this case. And you're talking about a Benedict team. We know their defense is sound, but I just don't think that they're going to be able to get enough stops against Knowles. But the accent to that too is making sure that if you're Albany State, make sure you lean on your running game in addition to what Knowles is going to do, and also win the battle on turnovers. Maybe forcing Benedict into turnovers, because we know Benedict doesn't do well all the time, specifically on offense, and especially if they have to come back from behind. So, and if you're also getting those stops defensively, if you're Albany State against Benedict, then you're forcing Darius Ocean to, throw the ball a lot as well. So I just think that whichever team is able to move the ball consistently offensively and get touchdowns in the red zone versus field goals, and I would give that edge more to Albany State versus Benedict. I think Albany State is going to win this game, but I think it will be close. Close being that it could be maybe 24-40 or maybe 24-20. I'm sorry, or 24-20.
Yeah, I was gonna say 20-40 close. Now, you handled that well because that's
yeah.
Brian, your final thoughts.
I'm gonna take Coach Quinn Gray at his word. I mean, he told us they weren't physical enough in the second meeting. So I think that will be different. And they showed them some things in game number 2 that they hadn't quite seen, and maybe that's why it produced a closer score. So the X factor for Benedict all season has been special teams and defensive scores.
Yep.
And if Albany State takes care of the ball, and if they take care of the special teams, Albany State should win this game by 10 plus. I think, and it sounds like here's a team that's locked in and focused. But I don't want to be. I didn't want to go with it's hard to beat a team 3 times or all that stuff. But but
I wonder what the actual data is on it.
So I have heard from other people that statistically that is not true, because there is data out there regarding that that speaks to the opposite of that. For example, in the show the other night, Coach Gray even pointed out there was a period of time when I think he mentioned the 94 calendar year in which Florida A&M and Southern played 3 times in the 1994 year. They played at the what was the previous bowl?
Circuit City? It's not Circuit City.
No. It was what's the postseason? The Heritage Bowl. They played in the Heritage Bowl, and then they played in the regular season, and then they played in the Heritage Bowl again. So they played like 3 times in a year, and Southern won all 3 of those games. So it's like, he kind of chuckled at that concept of having to beat somebody 3 times. He's like, well, Southern beat us 3 times. I don't think he was he wasn't on the roster yet back then, but he definitely remembers it. I don't know. Yeah. So AJ Cook remembers. So
good stuff. With that, I want y'all to get a chance to enjoy the rest of your Turkey Day. Again, appreciate you spending some time with us and our lab listeners to get out this great information, great show. Look forward to seeing you all on Sunday or next week in terms of getting whether to lather it up about the SWAC championship game. We'll go in all full. We'll give you some updates on some final scores. But then the rest of the week, we're going to, in next 3 shows, we're going to talk about the SWAC championship game and see what these gentlemen think about that. Follow Wilton Jackson II on all the work that he's doing. You can catch him on HBCU Game Day as he does his segment over there, giving you some great information, great laughs as well. Y'all have a ball over there with Tolly getting it done, leading that game of misfits, if you allow me to use that in a really good way. In terms of doing that. And obviously catch Brian and AD on Sports Wrap as they give you all your inside news Sunday night and give you an update of what's taking place. Thank you for listening inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with your friends and colleagues. Also look for SWAC TV Game Time. Will be in New Orleans as we start to close out the football season. We're going live for the last couple of shows. You've seen that. And we're excited about being in New Orleans for the Bayou Classic. But I am Dr. Kenyatta, the Dean of HBCU Sports, coming from inside the lab in the College of HBCU Sports with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Again, we want to thank you for listening to Dr. Bill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Mike Washington and Charles Bishop are on assignment. I think they're full of turkey, and they just could not wake them up. I was texting them, and they would not answer the phone. So the Traduncan lives on. Tuesday, Thursday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time, Sunday at 9 a.m. We'll be back and ready giving you those updates. We look forward to the news. Follow me, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. That's Thread, Facebook, and Instagram, DrKenyattacavil. Special shout out to Roy doing the productions and getting it going, hitting the road, doing what he sees best for BCSN. My JVN is where you can connect it and get all the future shows. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab 1, though, is on Facebook. Inside the HBCU Sports Lab is on YouTube. Dream big. Continue to move forward. We will talk with you soon. Brian?
Of course.
Wilton?
Lecture.
Dismiss.